Infiniti M45. This is the 2006 and up model, as you can tell from the intake manifold design. In today's video, I'll be showing the intake and vacuum tubing around the engine bay, at least as it's laid out for the second generation of the VK45DE engine. I'm doing this as a favor to somebody. Someone did request this, but I figured that maybe I should make it in a format that can be shared with the masses on YouTube. And whether you're doing this, you're looking at this video because you have an a VK45DE swap project and you want to get the vacuum tubing correct, or maybe you just want to maintain your own car, so might as well do this. So this is all stock, just the way I like it. The only thing missing was this intake snorkel, which usually goes over here, but I'm doing some maintenance, so off it goes. Other than that, everything else is pretty much stock. So when I speak about it, it's going to be like it came from the factory, okay? Factory air box, mass airflow sensor right here, MAF tube. This is your intake tube, and they like to call that the accordion over here. And you have lots of, vacuum tubing as well as coolant. So some of this has fluid, including this one here. Some of this has coolant, some of it has air or vacuum, so to say. So let me turn on the light. Yeah, maybe it helps, maybe a little bit. So first thing I'd like to do, let's just get this out of the way because it's right there, might be pretty easy to talk about, is right here. There's usually a little hole right after the accordion right here. And that hole has a plastic male nipple, male this way, male out that way, and then this tube goes over it. This tube then goes to the solenoid over here, and this is the Vias solenoid, VIAS, and the Vias solenoid is what makes your intake manifold have the dual intake runners, right? Long runners and short runners. So get this one over with. Then you have this large nipple over here, or large connection. And this one here, by the way, don't break this. Usually when people do valve cover jobs, they end up breaking that. So this one here is your fresh air intake, and air comes in from here, goes to your valve cover from the top on the left side, left bank, and then you have a T connection. Now this T sends in fresh air onto, using that crossover tube, all the way to the right bank, and you can see it going in right here. Okay, so that's it for the fresh air intake. And the fresh air intake goes to the valve cover because that's all related to the crankcase ventilation system. And so PCV, positive crankcase ventilation system, the PCV valves are towards the front in the VK45DE. And here's one on the left side right there. And the tube comes in, crosses over to the other side with a T connection over there, and this is where the second PCV valve is. So these ones usually have two. All right, and then this T connection over here goes to a connection point, or at least a port on the elbow that feeds into the intake manifold. All right, so those are the basics, and that's right behind the throttle body, because sometimes oil gets dumped. You'd rather dump it there. But depending on how you run it, you might also dump oil before the throttle plate. So it's just something to watch out for. Those are the basics I talk about, but we'll go to the back of the engine. Talking about vacuum, we've got this one here, and this goes to the back of the intake manifold right here. Then this one here goes to the brake booster over there. That's where it goes in. And this one has a check valve, so just something to know. And the arrow faces the engine. So I think I've tried to run an engine without that, and it sounds funny, bogs and does all its dance, but usually if you ran without the main tube back there, your engine's going to tell on you pretty quick. Okay, so there are a few other things that I'd like to show. And this is with regards to that Vias system I mentioned earlier. This is a solenoid. This is what activates it. But then when you come to the end of this rail over here, the top one here, this is coolant. And bent in a weird way. I guess I did something with it. Probably. I don't know. That's why it's painted. There's got to be something. Got to be a reason. So this is coolant. But then this tube, the skinnier one down here, this is vacuum. And it goes round this way onto this diaphragm in the back. This diaphragm right here. And this is one thing that sometimes people don't really notice because it dries, it cracks, and if you just ignore it. So mine is, I can tell by the color, the paint scheme, this is still OEM, but I know I've checked it and it looks nice and supple, so it's not cracked anywhere. Everything is working like it should. Okay, that's it. So the other vacuum side, through the back, because you have vacuum tubes running underneath here. Okay, you've got this one, and the one on the right side of the solenoid goes to the top port. Can you see that? Right here, down here, okay? And then you have the bottom one over here, and the bottom one goes over to the left side. You could kind of get these confused, honestly, you know? It's like a W. There you go. But then remember, the top one goes to the right, the bottom one goes to the left, okay? And from here, you have this tube, feeds into this elbow over here, and then comes into the side of the vacuum tank right here. And then the vacuum tank, the center, goes over this way, and this one feeds into the elbow as well. So, and this actually replaced these very recently. And what did I use? I did not buy brand new OEM for that. I just used some, what do you call this? Windshield washer hose. What's the size? 5/32, right? 6 foot of it. I bought this from O'Reilly's and it's saved my skin a few times. It's the same one you'd use if you needed to replace your tubing for your windshield washer, hence the name here. But it's worked very well for the tubing around here, you know, cut some excesses. Molded hoses would be great, but I'm not spending an arm and a leg on little tubing, especially when this one can work in this case. Okay, so that's mainly it for vacuum and air tubing in here. And the other stuff around here is mainly coolant. So that is, well, there's coolant and fuel. This one right here, throttle body, this is coolant. There's another, this right here is also coolant. And then this one comes from here and ends up going here, okay? So that's coolant. These are the tubes that you'd see up here. And then this one right here, this single one down here, this is fuel. And you can feel it's a nice sturdy hose. This is going to be your crossover tube for the right and left banks, right? Bank 1, bank 2 on the VK45DE. This one right here, this one is coolant. Goes to the reservoir, overflow reservoir. I think that's it for the main hoses around here. Well, I guess since we're talking about this other sturdy one right here, this is also fuel. And then this one right here is evaporative emission stuff from related to the fuel system. So this comes from the tank down there, tank and canister, etc. Okay, this is it for the second gen engine. But in case you were curious, and as I said, the guy I'm shooting the video for is doing this as a swap in a 350Z, I believe. So they don't really, the layout is way different, but at least I can tell you how it's supposed to look like when using an OEM setting. But for people who have their cars still and you're looking at tubing, just depends on how good you are at reading drawings. But when you open your hood, come to this corner right here. Do you see that? There you go. That is your vacuum hose routing diagram. There it is. Some of it is a little simplified, so to say. For example, on the solenoid right here, you know, this one comes from the tube, as you can tell, but then this one goes to the top. One of it goes to the right side, the other one goes to the left side. It doesn't really tell you what is the top or the bottom, right? So, and does it matter? Well, that's a good question. You do have the tube that comes from here to This is a vacuum tank. Okay, yeah, you have the vacuum tank over here. But then it says that we have a line that comes from here onto the evap canister. And this is the purge solenoid. So the purge solenoid is this one right here. And yes, you do have another tube. So this one right here, which I guess I didn't really show in any depth at all. This is a vacuum one that goes skinny tube over here, right here, and then comes this way. This right here is vacuum for the fueling system. So that's what you see over there through the evap canister. So that's it. I mean, that's about all I can show with regards to this video. I mean, if there are any questions, let me know, but I'm hoping the level of depth of going into will give you a decent idea as to how your tubing is supposed to be. And yeah,